Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, friends.
Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3. How is everyone? I'm gonna have to move your screen over, Meg. You're like a drop to. Where can I? No, oh, I can't. I can't pull it over. Oh no,
Tell me
I see
where
the
you want me
problem.
to go. I can just lean.
No, it's okay. The way it's set up, whatever. We'll figure it out. Devin on harmonica. Good morning. Can everyone hear us? I hope so.
You know, the one thing is, I don't have chat pulled up, so let me quickly remedy that
Having chat pulled
situation.
up is always helpful. Always helpful,
Oh,
I mean, to a degree. Okay, random topic to be in the chat. Thanksgiving. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing this evening? This morning. This morning. Speaking of which,
happy pre-Thanksgiving, guys.
pre-Thanksgiving. Do you
Thanksgiving
still,
Eve.
Meg? Do you still like buy stuff on Thanksgiving on Black Friday? Do you still treat that as like a big enough deal?
No. Even as a kid, so I used to work retail. So I used to work over Black Friday. And I remember the hardest one I did was I worked from 11 p.m. on Thanksgiving night until 5 a.m. and then drove to the Natick store, which is about an hour away, and then worked from 7 to like 1 p.m. Went home, took a nap, and then went back to my home store to close the register because I was a manager. So I really don't like holiday or Black Friday shopping because I was the worker.
That makes sense. That is
Yeah.
one of the things that's always been interesting to read through is the idea of you keep having these like additions to Black Friday. Where it's like, oh, Black Friday, and now it's like, we're gonna be Thanksgiving night, and now it's gonna be more and more and more. And you do have the is my screen
Yeah.
mirrored today? You know what? We're gonna fix that. My screen is mirrored. I have all the solutions here. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and copy this. We're gonna paste it. Okay, paste, and it's all gonna be good in a second. Maybe paste, paste, paste. Okay, it might be good in a second.
Uh-oh.
We'll figure it all out.
Uh-oh.
No, it's good. It's good. I just need this to actually just duplicate. Maybe it won't actually work on a live screen. Basically,
Duplicate.
well, the way you have it set up right now is your screen and my screen are both pulling from the same source, which means I could reverse mine, but then it would reverse you. So one of those things has to give. But in
Is mine
theory,
backwards?
no, yours is fine. That's the problem.
Why?
Copy, paste. It doesn't want to paste. Okay, we're gonna like get like 17 screens in a second, but either way. So here we are. So basically, yeah, Reed, I am mirrored definitely. I'll fix that before next stream. To give some background, there's so much stuff that goes into like running live streams in general. But right now, Meg and I are pulling from the same source. The problem is Discord mirrors me so that I look normal, because usually as a human being, you get mirrored in the mirror, so you look normal reversed. The problem is can I unreverse myself in Discord? Let's see. No, not really. Not really. I could do it in Streamlabs, but if I do it in Streamlabs, like for instance right now, if I transform and flip to center, flip horizontal, then right now, whoa, that didn't work at all. That's the wrong. Oh, it's the overlay. Oh. Okay, I figured something out, Meg. I figured something out. We're gonna copy. I'm gonna try pasting again.
We're doing it live.
Nope, still not working. Let's pull in a source. Let's pull in a source over here. We're gonna do the Discord overlay. Screen capture, okay, add source. Discord video, add source, perfect. That was on top. We don't want that on top, we want that on bottom. And now what I could do is whoa, that's the wrong size over here.
Wait, I'm Alex.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
Alex? No, you're not. What are you talking
I
about?
was for a second. For a second there, the overlay was on me.
Oh, interesting. So I'll fix this later. I'm not gonna do this right now. I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna self-control and I will fix it later, even though I want to. Anyways, to that end, so let's go ahead and dive into this. This is the weekly live. Things are crazy, unemployed lawyer. Ask away, ask away. This is always. I just like having things good, and I didn't realize it wasn't good until we started. And now it is what it is, and we're gonna make do with what we can make do. But Black Friday is always fun, or was always fun. The first year that I was in the US, I was very disappointed by it, because I came from Canada, and like we had Black Friday, and I dove into it, and I was like, everything's gonna be so cheap, and I was like, oh great, I'm standing in line and crowding through people to get like 17% off or something. I don't care enough.
Yeah. I like the online stuff. That stuff's fun.
Yes, Cyber Monday is a lot of fun until one year you spend half your day browsing Amazon, and you're like, I could have just worked and gotten the money I saved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Black Friday. I buy stuff, but I don't buy as much as I used to. Surround me. Devin is currently... Where is Devin?
He's on family holiday.
Devin's on family holiday. I just know
Tennessee.
Devin's not here.
Tennessee. It took me a minute, but Tennessee.
Devin's in Tennessee, apparently, so there's that. But yeah. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this. This is the weekly live. This is chaotic. Eventually we'll have...
Which means I'm the most consistent Board Game Co. employee. But that being said, I won't be here next week, guys.
For one more week, Meg is the most consistent Board Game Co. Person in general. I missed last week. Reed, he's standing in line for Black Friday. So, this is the weekly live. As usual, we have the format. As usual, the format will be crazy. As usual, we'll jump around from here to there and everywhere and figure it all out together. If there's any notes about volume being too loud, too quiet, screens being reversed, we'll do our best we can. But apparently, I can't fix it on stream as much as I wanted to, so we'll do that later. But to that end, we're going to go ahead and dive into this, starting off with our game of the week. Meg, what is your game of the week?
Oh my gosh. You know, Alex, we kind of talked about having like dreams about stream, and I had a dream that I missed this stream today. And now I feel like I've maybe talked about this game here before. I feel like maybe I've just been talking about it so much, but I don't think I've talked about it on this morning show. Is the Arkham Horror LCG.
Okay.
I don't believe I did. And I've been playing through it and really, really loving it. It's very challenging. Playing through a card game like that is very fun, where it's a lot of deck building, which goes back to my roots, but it's very punishing. It's very mean. Are you still playing with things?
Shh, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
I can see it moving.
We're changing it now. We're just getting it all set up. I took the opportunity of you talking about your game to like
Some
fix...
self-control.
No, there's no self-control, Meg. Let's be quiet. Let's focus on...
Which means I'm gonna kick it to Meg to talk.
No, but now you're centered. Now you're centered. And now I
Okay.
can reverse myself in a second. It's all good. It's all good. We're not going to focus on how neurotic I am, okay?
But yeah, I've been loving the playing through Arkham Horror. I'm playing through the Dunwich Legacy campaign right now. And the thing that I love is it is very punishing and it remembers. Where certain notes go in your campaign log, and it's one of the first games I've had really remember things like scenario over scenario, where there are consequences. I guess in things like Gloomhaven, you get locked out of things, so you don't really feel that you made the choice like later on. It just kind of happens, and what's available is what's available. Whereas in Arkham, it'll say like, if you did this, well, now that happens. And I don't know, it's been very cool and very spooky and creepy, and I don't think Cthulhu likes us.
Cthulhu definitely does not like us. Okay, I may have fixed this. 1 second. Why is... This is too large. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're done. Okay. I've definitely totally fixed it. Okay, so...
I know, honestly, I totally missed like the opportunity that while you were doing that, I should have been like, I really love that the control it gives players to really manage their setup and put it exactly how they want, and there's a lot of like leniency for how you set up things, if you want it mirrored or not mirrored, if you want to match the other player.
You should have played with it. But so far you've died how many times in this campaign?
3. And we've played 5 scenarios. I've lived the past 2, which feels great.
And you've played Marvel Champions, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you prefer and why?
I prefer Arkham. Again, I prefer the ongoing story. I think that I love campaign games. I love ongoing stories and diving back into something that you did last time. Love Marvel Champions, but it's the lightest of them. And I do love heavy games. I love campaign games. So for Arkham, I also love the story. You've kind of teased me about this a little bit, but I love Massachusetts.
Yes.
And Arkham is based in Massachusetts, and it's like that spooky vibe that I feel like it's outside my backyard. So I love Arkham lore. And that being said, I've also been trying to solo the Lord of the Rings LCG, and that one is hard. I have not been able to win. I haven't gotten past the first scenario. So I think I would probably love that one the most, like, IP-wise. But I can't win, so I don't know what to do.
There is that problem. So I always preferred Marvel Champions the most, and Arkham Horror is, so from the LCGs I've played, I don't know which ones you've dove into over the years. I think my very first LCG was Android Netrunner. I definitely gave Warhammer, this is like way callback, I gave Warhammer Invasion, I want to say. I think it's called Warhammer Invasion, if I'm not mistaken. But I gave that like one play and moved on from that. I don't think I ever played the Star Wars LCG. So I think I played Android Netrunner. Hey, Nuka, how's it going? Got a little cat on stream. Got a cat's tail on stream.
Here is Nuka. Here
So
she is.
I really liked Android Netrunner a lot when I first dove into it, but it wasn't one that I was willing to commit to the point of just investing into the LCG full-on property and all that. Warhammer Invasion never really lasted for me. Lord of the Rings, the card game, I dove into it once when it first came out, and that was like early on in my board game experience. When it first came out, no, I don't remember. It was so long ago. I don't imagine I did, because I dove into it years later. So then years later, I finally dove back into LCGs with Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror, and then Lord of the Rings, trying Lord of the Rings again. Arkham Horror LCG, I really appreciated, but I think because it's more campaign-driven, I was like, I just don't know if I'm going to commit to this the way I want to, or could, or should any of that. And I think it definitely has a lot of things over Marvel Champions, including the story, but thematically I'm less intrigued by it, and the campaign aspect wasn't as ideal for me.
Mm.
And so for me, the one that I stuck with is Marvel Champions. I have everything for that. I keep buying all the packs, and I keep buying them all because eventually the things go out of print. So even though I'm not using them now, I'm like, eventually one day I'll have a full Marvel Champions collection that eventually I get rid of, probably, because, that's just how life works.
Honestly, knowing that, it doesn't bother me that I haven't been picking them up as good as I should be then, because now I'm like, I can just play with Alex
I
and play
get
your Marvel Champions.
I think I have every single thing. I might be missing one. The problem is I really need to keep a list of when I miss them, because I usually just get the new stuff. But I think there was one of the older stuff that I wasn't able to get, and I need to find out what that is. And that's going to be like 4 hours of work to figure out the one thing I'm missing, which is super annoying. But anyways,
I'd say the one thing that I miss, I really love the deck building. That's one of my favorite things because I started as a TCG player and I love the deck building. But for the map, for that to also be cards, I get it. It's all a card game, but
Yeah.
I almost wish it was a board and that you were playing with cards. Like similar to, I don't know, something even like Ascension where it has like a board to set it up. And there are like playmats and stuff that people make, but that's my only thing.
Yeah. So Arkham, I like. I mean, I did a video one time of the 10 best games I don't own, and it was a video of games that I've decided aren't for me, but I think they're amazing. In fact, one of those actually, I believe, will be coming up later this video in our Patreon segment of games we've changed our mind on. Actually, I think 2 of those are in there. Anyways, but the 10 best games I don't own, I think 2 of them I now own again because they are amazing games. But Arkham Horror was, I think, number 2 on the list. It was like this is such a good game. I just don't. I'm not going to invest into it the way I want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my game.
James, I was gonna say James Ray. Nuka is named after Fallout. It's Nuka-Cola, little Nuka-Cola.
I'm guessing James guessed that. And by the way, James, for the record, James, thank you so much for that last midnight super chat you gave. And there will be a crazy super chat at some point. Meg, when's our Devin, Meg, and Alex trip next?
Devin, Meg, and Alex.
I think it's like mid-December, right?
December 12th to the 15th.
Well, James,
coming to Arkansas near you.
There'll be a late night super chat, and we owe you some craziness. Anyways, there'll be a late night stream, and we owe you craziness.
I was gonna say, will there be?
We'll have to make it happen.
Absolutely. We do now. We said it live.
Yeah, we said it live. So, of my game of the week is a different card game, totally different card game. One that's Paperback Adventures. Paperback Adventures, which do I have near me? No, it's just out of reach over there. I wish I could grab it. Paperback Adventures is just landed as far as, what's it called? Hey, Allison. How's it going? Good morning.
Hey!
How are you doing? We're totally not sticking to our accurate script here. But anyways, Allison, we'll see our packs, I hope. Maybe. Possibly.
Probably.
Paperback Adventures. Paperback Adventures from Tim Fowers, I believe from Fowers Games. He's the creator of Paperback and Hardback, which are 2 deck-building card games. They're deck-building card games in which you are trying to basically build out a deck and then try to come up with a better ward as you build out better ward structure and all those things. The problem is, I always liked those games but never loved them because I am not a fan of the system that tends to happen in ward games where I'm sitting there and trying to come up with the perfect ward and take, 7.5 minutes because I want to get that perfect ward in there. And I don't love it when a game devolves into like, okay, well, no, I got these 6 letters and I'm pretty sure I can use all 6 if I'm super careful and all that. And so I just don't love that system. I love the concept of ward games, but I don't love that AP as you wait for the perfect person to take forever on their ward. Paperback Adventures solves that because it's a solo game. It's a solo game of trying to come up with the perfect ward and trying to use that as much as possible. In terms of, you're basically playing as a hero who's going to be deck building in a very Slay the Spire kind of sense of progression. Across multiple bosses, you're going to have like 3 weak enemies and then 3 strong enemies, and you're trying to fight against all of them one at a time, so 6 total enemies. And each enemy is like a real challenge to go through. They're a real process as they have their own little AI, how they activate, and you're trying to build your deck, gather various MacGuffins, which are just basically abilities you'll have, and trying to build your character, your deck, and your gear and your items around how to take down progressively stronger and stronger enemies. So overall, I played through it a few times now so far. First time I got crushed, which I love. I like it when a game shows me it's hard because then it actually feels like an accomplishment when you actually beat it. But then I managed to start winning it a bit more, and there are difficulty modifications in play in order to adjust the difficulty once you're getting too good at it. But basically, it's a word game. It's a word game with a variety of heroes, a variety of enemies, and the enemy variety is large. Like, there's so many enemies, it's going to take like a bunch of plays before you see all the enemies, let alone the configuration of enemies, allies, heroes, all those things. Not really allies. Enemies, items, MacGuffins, heroes. There's a lot of stuff going on. But overall, that's the one I've been diving into a lot this week, Paperback Adventures.
Yeah, I think that hearing it, I might not be that interested. Just that kind of thing isn't my jam. But then I saw it. I saw some of you playing it, and it does look really interesting.
Yeah, it's very, I don't know, I think you have to like word games as a general premise, but if you are, yeah, I think that works.
Yeah.
Also, we do have to acknowledge Dragon's Tomb over here. Dragon's Tomb is the premier YouTube channel out there. He's the reason Quackalope exists, if you don't know that. And so Dragon's Tomb is in the chat. Welcome, Dragon's Tomb. Thank you for honoring us with your presence.
He created board games.
I've heard he created board games. Yeah. Also revolutionizing.
There wasn't many privilege to be there when it happened, but it did happen.
Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, those are our games of the week, which means, Meg, it's time for your Kickstarter pick of the week.
My Kickstarter pick of the week. You know, Alex, I'm wondering if at some point we should screen share to show the Kickstarter or something, because this is one that I want people to see.
Do you want my mind to explode? Just right now?
Explode your mind.
Just right
You've
now?
already seen it.
I know.
I mean, very entertaining.
I mean, trying to mess with it on stream, doing it right now.
Oh no! Yeah, do it while I talk.
Yeah.
So mine is a Laser Ox. I say Laser-O, which I feel like is a French thing, and I know it's Laser Ox, which I just say it wrong, and that's my own fault. But they are currently doing a campaign for Gloomhaven / Frosthaven / Jaws of the Lion. It's more geared toward Frosthaven, but definitely Gloomhaven. And it's a bunch of accessories. So it's a player board where you can have all of your stuff sorted. You can have your modifier deck sorted. There are coasters for the different classes. And one of my favorite things is they magnetize together. I don't know if you've seen that, Alex, but the little modifier tray things can magnetize to the player board. There's also a giant, beautiful wooden map. There's a thing that lays over the Frosthaven map, which I'm very interested in. So check it out. Oh, look, he's doing it. We're doing it live.
It was reversed. I wasn't going to mess with it.
Yeah, so there's 7 days left. But definitely check it out, because if you can get to the graphic, Alex, where it just snaps to... Oh, you already moved it. The problem is I'm watching stream, so it's delayed. But it looks really cool, guys. If you play Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, definitely look into it. If you're new and getting into the game, I wouldn't pick it up, because if you're not sure if you're going to love it, maybe wait, because it is just a premium accessory, which is... But if you like these games, do not sleep on this. I'm excited.
I got it on stream. I got it. We can talk about the game now. Ooh,
look at talk this. About it now.
Yeah, we can talk about the game. Go ahead, talk about the Frosthaven thing. Show me the cool things. What am I looking for?
Map. The thing is that we're delayed, so I can't see it on the screen. But yeah, fair. For the Frosthaven map. The Frosthaven map is 2 pieces bigger than the Gloomhaven map. The Gloomhaven map is 4. The Frosthaven one is 6. And there's a layover now that it just makes this beautiful wooden frame for it to put up on your wall.
Yeah, the whole
Alex,
thing...
We're going to have to add it to the Board Game Co. budget for 2023.
Honestly, the whole thing... So this is... You've played with a bunch of Gloomhaven setup stuff before, right?
Kind of. I've only actually done a player board. I've done my own solutions for storage, which is a craft organizer from Amazon, but that's just a craft organizer, actually. And for actual swag like this, I've only used... a player board from Part and Prints, which is a 3D printed one. Absolutely love them. And then you actually gave me some Gloomhaven stuff, but I haven't gotten to play with that yet. So I do have a wooden element board and things like that, but I haven't played since then with those.
So this is interesting, because I'm just looking at the page right now, and some of the ways they have things handled here. The question is always going to be table space and accessibility, but some of these things look very cool and very, very intriguing.
Yeah, I just love that they snap together, that you don't have to keep it stored the way that it assembles on the table.
We'll have to figure out.
I also need those coasters, Alex.
Just how expensive is this whole thing go up to? The most expensive pledge is actually fairly reasonable, 490 euros. What the hell is this? That has a lot of stuff, though, to be fair. That has a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But
and it's all wooden, and that's the thing, it's wooden and handmade.
Yeah, it looks like you can get to a more no, I'm trying to figure out where. I don't know. It looks like a solo adventure is going to run you 50 euros. So it looks like you're talking about maybe 100 euro for the stuff you'd need. I'm not really factoring in all the modular aspects. I just don't know what the price point of everything would be. But yeah, lots of potential money there to spend. Anyways, so from there...
Lots of potential money. That's all I have is potential money.
Potential money. We all spend potential money. It's much easier to spend potential money than actual money. So, with that, as far as our, what's it called, topics, I'll start off with the topic of the week, which is actually a great tangent, a great segment from there. Speaking of €490 for this, and my topic of the week is kind of based on Elden Ring at the moment. Based on, I guess, the Laser Rocks thing, which is, are games getting too expensive? Are board games getting too expensive as far as what a Kickstarter game costs, how much they should cost? Elden Ring currently is coming in at $450 or somewhere in that range, $429 or something, plus shipping, plus this, who knows, as far as what a full all-in pledge for Elden Ring will cost. We had Marvel Zombies. That was costing, $700 for the all-in. We have Darkest Dungeon. By the time you're done with that, it's like $400, $500 for the all-in. More and more, games have gone. I remember back in the day when I first, and Meg, you've been in the hobby for quite some time now, so you probably have, similar.
$60 felt like a lot.
That's the $60 was the number I was going to pick. Specifically, Eclipse.
Funny.
Eclipse was a game that when it came out, I remember it was like $60 on Cool Stuff Inc. And I was like, wow. I was like, do I really need a $60 game when I can get $35, $40 games? Do I really need a $60 game?
Yeah.
And then like we had Super Dungeon Explorer that was like an $85 game, and I was like, whoa, these things are expensive. Who has time, patience, or money for this kind of stuff? And then I remember the first time I backed a Kickstarter and started getting sucked in by the FOMO was actually Cthulhu Death May Die, which is a game I love, so no regrets. But I remember when Cthulhu Death May Die, this is when I was still new to Kickstarter, and Cthulhu Death May Die came out. And I backed it. I was like, $100, I'm going to justify this. I'll go for it. We'll make it happen. And this is like, I was new. This is when it was actually like hard for me to spend $100 on a board game. And then they're like, oh, and here's this optional buy we just dropped for like $25. And I was like, I'll do it. I want the stuff. $25. And like, here's season 2. Here's season 2 with like the extras and like another $50. And I was like, this is starting to feel like a little bit of a problem. And then they're like, and here's special cool dice. And I was like, okay, now we're to $185. And like, they slowly pulled me in with that $185. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's a lot of money spent on a single board game. Also, again, no regrets. One of my favorite games of all time. But like that felt like a real process. And then they just keep getting more expensive. We have Madara that had an all-in of $500. We have Storm Sunder that if you want like the Storm Brush and everything else, all-in of like $800. If you want to buy custom miniatures painting for your Nemesis pledge, you can spend like $1,400-$1,500. It gets more and more expensive to get every single thing, and it doesn't seem to be going down.
And there's things to consider too, like you were saying about Marvel Champions. Like, how much do you end up buying for Marvel Champions before you're considering it like all within, like, how much have you actually spent on Marvel Champions?
It's $12 at a time. I don't count that at all.
Right? I think that's part of why it didn't bother me getting into the hobby is that, again, and you started with Magic, so I think it's a bit similar, but you were more casual with Magic.
Yeah.
Me playing Pokemon, you needed the newest cards to be able to keep up. You would either be buying singles or a ton of packs. And you would also not mind the swag, that like it had a swag culture where we played with dice. You would use dice to like track everything. So you would want pretty dice, you would want Pokemon sleeves, you would want really pretty dice bags, you would want play mats. So for me, like the add-ons of swag was always a normal thing. I agree though that like for board games, it really has exploded. Like now you can get pins and stickers and coloring books and lore books and plushes and like all of the random things that you can add on. But that doesn't really bother me. I agree that I think that a price of a game like a core box is more of an issue than add-ons of like miniatures and dice, and that I don't mind at all.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you mentioned the Magic, and I played Warhammer back in the day, Warhammer and Magic, which means my entry point to gaming was very much just expensive stuff that, in the case of Warhammer, it was expensive stuff you never even played. And so I definitely walked in with some degree of, in fact, we have a Harves in the comment saying, each of these big games have to be considered as lifestyle games. Unfortunately, I have too many lifestyles, which is exactly the way I feel about it. Warhammer and Magic were lifestyle games, sure. Even Marvel Champions is kind of, to me, that's like a single LCG that I invest in. I refuse to invest in the rest of the LCGs. I have a single one that I'm invested in, I'm committed to, and it's a single LCG. And so yes, by the time I'm done with it, it'll be $1,000, if not more. But more and more you have these big box experiences that keep becoming significantly expensive. Depending on who you are, they see play 1 or 2 times a year, and you have to figure out what your level of commitment is. I think a big part is that concept of the lifestyle game. I think more and more when you have a game that costs $500 on Kickstarter, forget $500, when you have a game that costs $100 on Kickstarter, I think you have to consider it a luxury item. You have to consider it, this is not board gaming. This is luxury board gaming. This is already at the point where you're kind of committing to the deluxeified product. You didn't just get the game and the insert and the sleeves and this. You're buying it all at once. You're committing to a lifestyle product that is not it's pricing itself out of the range of standard board games, no different than the way that, I don't know, buying a watch could have different price points. You have price points of $30, of $50, $70, $300. Watches become a premium product, and at the end of the day, you have to decide what degree of premium product you want to get in on. But it is pricing people out, and that's a big thing. You're seeing a lot of frustration of people being like, who wants to pay $500 for a game? And the answer might be not you. But there's plenty of amazing games out there that you can get your hands on for $30, for $40. Games are getting more expensive. We are seeing costs increase in, because of everything going on in the world. So we are seeing small increases in materials and things. But fine, your $30 game's now $40. There's still plenty of amazing $40 games that we'll regularly recommend on so many different channels in so many different ways. But there's also $500 games. One of the things I think recently, what was the game recently? There's a game recently that somebody is asking me about. Oh, Mosaic. Mosaic. This is a great example. You've played Mosaic, Meg.
Yes.
Mosaic is one that I think is a great game, and I've recommended to people as a great game. And also in the same breath, I've also said it's a great game that I think the best way to play it is the $150, $200 version of it. And realistically, I can recommend Terraforming Mars and Brass Birmingham and Through the Ages, and you can get all three of those for the same price point. So I think we still have that strong differentiation of you can experience it all, but sometimes you're paying for a luxury premium item, and sometimes you're just trying to get as many good games as possible.
And I think, too, in that same vein, there's, the hype of things that, so many things are documented now. Like, when I was playing games 10 years ago, you would play a game at someone's table, maybe take a picture together, maybe? And that would be with your friends and not of the table. And now you're taking so many pictures of the table throughout the whole experience, I feel like, that a lot of people want, the deluxe components and things like that. And I feel like it's something that wasn't as wanted before, and now it's, that FOMO thing of, well, I want mine to look this way because I want it to look as good as possible. And I think that that's something that I encourage letting go of. I encourage, I would rather have 2 games that are $40 games than one $80 game if it plays the same and it's just a deluxe version.
And so often I think that you can have access to that. Unless you're someone, there are people, I'm somebody who likes to have as many things as possible, absolutely. But there are so many people who, I think that there are so many games you have access to that are cheap that there's not always a reason to look at the expensive stuff unless you're someone who's at the point where you've tried all the cheap stuff anyway. Again, for every big box expensive game, I can recommend a cheaper way to have the same amount of fun. It's just, if you want it all, sometimes you'll have to pay to get it all. Yeah.
And then something I think about with that as well, which is something that comes up a lot with video gaming, is the price per play. Where something like Gloomhaven, I played all of the scenarios. I couldn't tell you how many hours I played into it. That it's I probably paid, $1 an hour or whatever for it. Or, I don't know. But a game like that compared to, even if it's a lower priced $40 game that I played twice, I don't mind paying more for a game that is a bigger campaign game if I know I'm going to sink X amount of hours into it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
In any case, what is your topic of the week?
My topic of the week, switching this a little bit to something kind of topical, is we will all be at PAX Unplugged next week. So I wanted to talk about packing for a convention, and particularly games, because this is something that I have serially done, every single time. I always pack way too many games to bring to a convention, don't end up playing mostly any of them. And I think that I just wanted to ask you, Alex, because we haven't really gone to too many conventions together, and I don't really know your process of packing things. At WSBG we were at was a bit different, so we got to bring some games because we weren't sure what would be there. But what is your process for packing and bringing games? Because I used to bring a lot. I used to pack and plan a ton, and then also get more at the convention and play ones at the convention, and I would basically just be transferring my games to other states for no reason.
So that the key words are what you said there, for no reason. Something that I have been adjusting as I go to different conventions, and different conventions with different purposes. And so I think that, first of all, if I'm flying, if I'm flying, my main goal is to be a solo game or two. But I always find that when I try to bring games, I almost always overpack and overcommit to what I actually need. A big part of that is most gaming conventions have games. They have game libraries, and you have other friends who've brought games with you, and they'll look at their own figuring of their games and whatnot. But I think the first thing is to try to find out what your friends are doing, as well as what gaming libraries are in place at the convention, and then being realistic with your time. A big thing I do is I'm never realistic with how much free time I'll have at a convention, or even just when I'm traveling, or flying, whatnot. But that manifests in a few ways. Whenever I fly somewhere, I have 7 rule books I bring with me, and I read 2 of them. But that's not a problem, because rule books are tiny. I can bring 7 rulebooks, and it's not an issue if I don't use 5 of them. Board games, when I bring 7 board games and play 2 of them, that's a whole lot of wasted space, and it's not a problem if necessarily you're driving. Sometimes it's okay, but even if you're driving, like, are you comfortable leaving them in the car? If not, you're lugging them back and forth to your Airbnb or hotel or whatever it is. And so I do still bring games to conventions when I travel, but I have been trying to get more and more restrictive about what I bring, how many I bring, and actually being realistic about why am I bringing that. So even right now for PAX Unplugged, I believe there are 2 games that we're currently bringing, because you and I have plans to play them with Devin, to get them played, to cover on the channel and whatnot. And so we're going to have, I think, the Dune Imperium expansion, and then Clank Catacombs. And even those, there's still a chance we won't play them, but we theoretically have actual plans to play them. It's not ambient. And I think that's a big deal for me, which is, more and more I've realized that if I have actual plans to play the game, then bringing it is worth it. Most of them will get played. But if I have ambient, like, ooh, who knows, maybe I'll have a chance to play them, they almost always never get played. And even if they do get played, it's not like it's a problem if they hadn't. There's almost always other games to have access to.
Yeah.
And so I think it is a different conversation depending on how you travel, how much room you have, and all of those. But more and more, I'm only bringing games where there's an actual committed plan to play them.
I think a big thing to keep in mind for me as well is I would bring games that I love, and what ends up happening is that you're seeing all of like your friends, you're talking so much, it's an extremely social thing, and then you get very tired very quickly. So we would bring a bunch of games and then only end up playing like shorter party games, which I think makes sense because you're going to be talking so much to other people, and then on top of that you're going to want to like crash and go to bed all of a sudden. So you don't want to be like halfway through Terraforming Mars and then have someone want to go to bed, and like you can't blame them. Like, we're at a convention and we're getting up early and it makes complete sense. So yeah, any big game that I've brought does not get played. And that being said, you're talking about 2 bigger games, but I think those like we'll find specific time for. But I brought Spirit Island to PAX Unplugged, and why? Like, why?
Yeah, so like that's another thing with solo games. I found that smaller solo games, like, I have the best of intentions. Even this past week when I was in Poland and visiting GameCon, I was like, I'm gonna play Tainted Grail the whole Sunday. I didn't. I played Pickback Adventures and some Agropolis and some Onirim, small, lighter solo games. I think part of that was just the room I was in. I was in a cramped room. I didn't feel like I had the space for like a Tainted Grail game. I was like, I'm just gonna play small little games on my table and call it a day. But yeah, solo games, I find smaller ones I get played, larger ones not as much. As far as a few things in chat I want to address over there. First of all, Reed McCullough is like, bringing rulebooks for light reading. I can't imagine that desire or dedication. Reed, I always have a lot of games to play, and the ways I get those games played is, a lot of it's like finding every opportunity. One of the things Devin likes to make fun of is the very first time I picked Devin up from the airport. The very first time I met him in person, I picked him up and I was sitting there reading a rulebook while picking him up, and then as we started driving away, I still kind of like half was reading the rulebook while I pulled away, and then I put it down. He gives me such a hard time, but I'm like, listen, you gotta read rules somewhere. But yeah. Past that, also,
I did feel very proud for Frosthaven that I was like, don't worry, Alex, I read it. And you were like, you read it? I was like,
it's 70 pages. It's 70 pages.
I read it.
I'm hoping to read it this past... Like, that's another one. I was actually hoping to read the Frosthaven rulebook on the flight back from Poland, but I only had a digital file, and I wasn't sure if it's the most updated one, and I was like, I am not reading 70 pages, only to find out that there's, like, 3 pages somewhere that I didn't understand.
It is, by the way, I checked, so if you do want to use that one, you can. It is up to date.
The one
just for future, if that's easier for you to read digitally.
Stacy, audio rulebooks in our future. That is a great question. So this is actually a random point. So a random thing, and I was telling Rena this because I was telling her the debate, and Meg, I briefly brought this up to you. But so when I travel to you, it's like basically it's to get to where you are, flight and travel and all that, start to finish, from me leaving my house to when I get to your house. When you fly there is around 6 hours, start to finish. But if I drive, it's around 8.5, maybe 9. And I prefer driving to flying. But I was saying a big part of my decision tree, I was like trying to think, should I drive the next time I visit you? Should I just drive and just call it a day because I don't mind it? But it's like, you're still losing 3 hours. Is that worth it? And the cost of gas versus the cost of a flight, actually somewhat comparable, unfortunately. So you're not even really saving a lot of money. You're saving a little bit on like the Uber to the airport or something like that. And a big part of my decision tree was, I wonder if I can get certain rule books and just listen to them as I go. Because if I can get like audio rule books and just listen to them as I go, I'll just do the car ride and call it a day. Because I can call it work time.
See, I don't know if I could do that. I feel like I visually look at things as I'm reading. Like, some stuff I could just read, but I feel like usually when I'm learning a game, I either need the game in front of me or, like, the graphics that are in the rulebook. Because I was thinking, like, you could just... I mean, I don't know if you're usually reading more current games that are newer that probably wouldn't be out yet, but, like, Watch It Played... I use Watch It Played all the time, and like that's something that I'll watch that in the car if I'm the passenger. If I'm driving somewhere and I can just watch something, I'll watch that on my phone. But
as the driver,
something like that, I feel like might be tough. Yeah.
So my hypothetical game plan is to kind of think of the games that I want to learn, and then have a single page printout of the setup that I'm able to kind of reference. I think a combined listening to Rodney Smith in the background without watching him while having a physical look at the board, I think could be enough. But yeah. Harves, thank you for the super chat. Happy Thanksgiving,
Aww.
Meg and Alex. Oh my gosh, why am I in parentheses? Harves, you must be part of our Twitch community. What are your ideal Thanksgiving games? Everdell, Creature Comforts, Flamecraft, Feast for Odin, Unplaying Death May Die. Harves, you are in my mind. You are in my mind today, Harves. We're going to talk about why. You're going to find out later why you're in my mind. But we'll get to that part later. As far as my Thanksgiving games, I believe I'm playing Zombicide Undead or Alive on Thanksgiving. That's currently what I have planned. Yeah.
Yeah, I typically for family gatherings, I don't bring anything like that. For family gatherings, I usually bring Timeline, which is a great, easy party, not party, but like family game. That one in the crew. But that being said, throughout COVID, my favorite thing to do was play Jaws of the Lion on holidays. We played it through Christmas from noon until like 1 a.m. So I am diving into Frosthaven. That in our free time on Thanksgiving when we're home, we'll probably be playing Frosthaven. And then that night, Alex, we get a special treat and we get to play Gloomhaven.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We are playing. Oh wait, are we playing Gloomhaven or Roleplay Adventures?
Or Roleplay Adventures.
Something. Technically. Anyways, so that is going to be our what's it called? That's our topics of the week, 2 topics of the week, which brings me to, and I can see my share because I figured this out already, which brings
Jonathan
me to...
Richter that said, I'll reply to your email soon. Are you Jonathan the artist, Jonathan?
Which Jonathan the artist, Jonathan, do you reach out to?
For something Gloomhaven that I've told you about.
Oh, are you Jonathan?
So nice
are you that
see
Jonathan?
You here.
Did you expect Jonathan
exciting.
showing up in the stream over here?
I think it is.
Wait, did you expect him to show up?
No. So nice to like kind of meet you.
Jonathan, are you here because of the email or you happen to be a viewer anyways? That is so intriguing.
He may be a viewer of you, but he didn't know who I was till I reached out to him.
Intriguing. Oh, is that Jonathan? Very cool. Jonathan, your work is fantastic.
I'm so excited.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit... I've seen Jonathan's work and it's incredible.
Yeah,
Anyways.
if you guys Google Chibi Gloomhaven, you'll see on Etsy he does a bunch of, I think they're stickers, or at least there are stickers, but there's other stuff maybe too. But on his Etsy, he does adorable renderings of the Gloomhaven characters.
Yeah, Jonathan, if you want to throw a link in the chat, by all means. This is like, no, I'm a viewer. The overlap is crazy. Oh my gosh, that's very cool.
Nuts.
Jonathan, that's awesome. Very, very cool. Okay, I've seen you. So we'll talk later. Anyways, my Kickstarter of the week. And I can actually share my screen now because I did this, sort of, ish. Let's try to reposition it a bit. I'm not going to get too neurotic about it. We'll call it a day. There we go. On the Underground, London and Berlin. This is from Ludi Creations. Currently on, this is not the Kickstarter page. 1 second. Wrong one. They have it currently active on the Underground, Paris and New York. You see, I was able to correct that. This is their currently active Kickstarter, $55,000. On the Underground is from them, and it's like Ticket to Ride if Ticket to Ride had a whole lot more thinkiness behind it. The general idea of On the Underground, and it's a fantastic game. Like, this is one. The reason I want to talk about this one today is because On the Underground is a game that I played the original On the Underground before Ludi Creations took it over years ago, before I got into gaming. I got into this one. My father actually brought it home. My father's actually from England, and there was On the Underground, the Underground from the UK, and he saw it in a store and he brought it home. And it's one of those things where the general idea of the game is you have a passenger, and then you have these lines you're trying to create, and the passenger is trying to get to his destination using as few transfers as possible, regardless of the distance. So, like, going back to that board over there, if you take a look over here at the board, you can kind of see these routes being created, and he will always try to use as few lines and transfers as possible, regardless of how far he goes. So he'd rather travel, like, around the entire city if it's a single line, as opposed to moving 2 nodes over if he has to make a transfer. And so the goal is to kind of set up your own pathways on this map as you go through it, as you try to figure out the most efficient way to get the passenger constantly moving to the locations that they're trying to get to. And so it's a fascinating little puzzle of like a very Ticket to Ride style of building out routes, but it's much more collaborative because you're constantly fighting for this passenger's attention. So it feels much more interactive. And it's like, there are kind of games that I always feel, no disrespect to other games, but sometimes there are games where I'm like, that was the cooler version of the game. So for example, like Acquire and Monopoly. Monopoly is a game that entered the public domain, and it's very present, very whatever. But I think Acquire is the game Monopoly should have been, in the sense that it gives you a same general, capitalistic build out kind of your stuff, but with a lot more strategy behind it. And similarly, Ticket to Ride is amazing, make no mistake, but from the accessibility standpoint, it's much better. But from a pure what you're doing with the game, I always felt Ticket to Ride had two kind of offshoot games that I think were more intriguing versions of the game. There's Thurn and Taxis from Rio Grande Games, which is a fantastic game in its own right, not really in print anymore, I believe. And then there's On the Underground, which I think is totally incredible, and it's one that I actually never played Ludicreation's Creation's version of it. It's one that I want to pick it up to see if it's the kind of game that I give the time and effort and energy to if I had the newest version of it. But it's basically building out routes, very cool system. If you like that style of game and you want to see a bit more decision space behind it, I think On the Underground is absolutely fantastic from Ludicreation's Creations. Yep. And then, which brings us to Monster Big Buck has a question, which is, what's the topic and theme for today? And the
what could it be?
Oh, James is not wrong, by the way. Bus is also Bus and On the Underground, a lot of overlap in them. When I played Bus from Capstone Games and from Splotter, when I played Bus, I very much thought that it was very similar in feeling to On the Underground. Anyways, what do we have now? Topic of the week. The topic of the week, as Swebme just very kindly points it out, which is the games you've changed your mind on the most, both good and bad. What games have you changed your mind on?
Swebme already. Oh my gosh. Swebme already knew because she is a patron. And if you would like to vote on the topic of the week, become a patron and you will be able to make suggestions for the topics and vote on it. You don't have to, but it is a fun time. We are a fun crew. That is all. Sorry, Alex.
No, I appreciate the shout out. Patreon, link down below.
Yes,
anyways,
you'll get the inside scoop. Patrons also get Alex's entire weekly schedule, so they know what's coming up this week. There's going to be a few sad videos on Alex's channel coming later this week, so we'll see how that goes.
Oh, you're missing the real fun part. There's not just a schedule, but every single week on Monday, well, when I do my 2-back not to back, I drop on Patreon a video telling you all the reasons not to back every single game, where I just try to be abusively brutal and giving you all the reasons. It's called Unfair and Unbalanced, and I try to convince you not to back every single Kickstarter. Anyways,
it's a good time.
Yeah. Point is, so Meg, let's go back and forth in this one. Let's just take turns to picking various games that we've changed our mind on in different ways. You've been in the hobby since what, 2012, 2011? 2012, yeah. So
maybe 11. I played Arkham Horror. I can't remember when. I've been playing Pokemon since 2000. Oh my god, I almost said 2018. 2008.
Yeah, so I'm in the exact same range. I always alternate between 11 or 12, depending on what you consider being like the entry point. But that means we both been in the hobby for 10 years now, and that's a lot of time to change your minds on change your mind in different games. Although a big part of this conversation, at least on my end, is there's two categories. One is the category of things that I played, and at a certain point I'm ready to move on from it, and I changed my mind that way. The other one is a little harder, because the other one is games that I said no to, and then at some point gave it another shot, and those are harder because most of the time I have to have a strong reason as to why I gave it a shot, because usually if I'm done with it, I'm done with it. And more often than not, this is another topic for a different week, more often than not when I do give a game another shot, I find that I was right the first time. I'm like, that's exactly why I got rid of it. I remember all the reasons why I didn't like it the first time, and trying it again was a mistake. And so I don't have a ton of games I've changed my mind heavily over the years, and I think a big deal I would say as well is I don't consider the slow burn of a game getting less fun to be changing my mind, for me personally. If a game is really good, and it's really good, and then 5 years later I'm like, you know what, it's really good, I've played enough times, that's not changing my mind so much as getting enough exposure to the game, to the systems, that I've played it out. I don't consider that changing my mind, I consider that just the natural evolution. There's only so many times you can read a book or watch a video before you read it less or watch it less. And with that, I'll start with my first pick of the week, and Harv's K, by the way. So Harv's K mentioned earlier, what are your Thanksgiving games? I think he nailed like 3 of the games I wanted to talk about today in his list of the games he changed your mind on. But I'll start with my first one. My first one is one that, and I have a bunch, there's a ton of these. I'm just picking random opportunities, random games that I changed my mind on in different ways. But the first is one I actually played with you, Meg, recently, at WSBG, which is A Feast for Odin.
Yes.
A Feast for Odin is one that I played, I want to say 4 years ago, in 2018, maybe 2017, and maybe, I'm not sure when it came out, so maybe it's 2018. I played it multiple years ago, and I gave it a single shot, and I thought it was good. Like, I liked it. I played it. I was like, that was a good game. Also, I don't feel the need to play it again. And I kind of just got rid of it. I moved on from it. And yet it's one of those games, and this happens a lot with games that hit the top 100, happens a lot with popular games, where just over the years I continue to see people being excited about it, loving it, and I kept wanting to give it another shot. And so around a year and a half ago I got it back, and then kept wanting to play it and never actually tabling it. Which brings us to WSBG, where we ran into Board Game Dave, and Board Game Dave, we were talking to him, and I was like, what's your favorite game? He's like, oh my gosh, A Feast for Odin. I was like, we should play that while you're here. I'm going to use you to reteach me the game. And so we sat down.
Such a chunky game to be like, you can teach us to us.
Yeah. So, well, I to be fair, I asked him specifically. I was like, is that a game you want to play while you're here? He's like, I'd love to. And so we caught him, we managed to finally catch him 2 hours before his flight to the airport. And so, 2 hours before his trip to the airport. 2 hours before his flight would be bad. Don't start Feast of Odin 2 hours before your actual flight. But we sat down. We had a timer on the game. We knew we might not finish it. We did actually finish it. But I really, really enjoyed it. So I had a lot of fun diving into it. And to the point that I even played it again. The following week when I got back home, I played it again with one of my friends. And I was like, yes, that was awesome. And Bryce said playing with Meg probably helps make the game more fun, to be fair. Not against that, but I think a big part of it that's actually interesting is the person I played Feast for Odin back with, 3-4 years ago, they were really not into it. Which is a big thing to be said about being mindful of being affected. It's actually something I'm very conscious of when I review a game. When I review a game, if the people I play it with are not into the experience, I very often try to play it with a different group before I review it, because I am fully aware that playing with people who are not with you in the experience, that can really tank an experience for me. And I think that was the main, and even then I still liked it, I just didn't love it. And so diving into it again with people who were into it, I think absolutely made it, I'm very excited. I have the expansion. I want to dive into it again. It's one of the games we hope to play, on our Devon. Actually, are we playing it on the trip or just playing it online? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that is...
so many games to play.
There's a lot of games to play. But Feast of Odin is definitely a game I changed my mind on.
Yeah, that one did... I had no prior knowledge, but it was such a fun time. That was such a good game. I really enjoyed that we were all paced the same. And I feel like when pacing is off in games, that can really ruin the experience for other people.
Yes.
If you're taking a bit too slow or things like that, when it comes down to it, guys, we're all playing a game. Who cares who wins? Obviously you should try to win, but I don't feel the need to make everyone wait for me to take the most optimal decision if we're doing something for fun and for recreation.
Such a pity Devin's not here today. Okay. Devin's awesome. Just we give him a hard time because 2 games recently he was not awesome.
Yeah. He just took a little bit of extra time.
A little bit of extra time. I'm pretty sure one person brought a book out and I brought a rule book out. That's the amount of extra time.
We should have played Dice Miner in between.
We could have finished the game before his next turn. At one point, I think I went downstairs to get something, and then I came up 7 minutes later, waiting for you to shout at me, and I was like, "Okay, whose turn is it now?" And I was like, "No, it's still mine. It's still mine." We loved it.
I went to the bathroom, and I felt so bad because I felt like I took a long time going to the bathroom, and it didn't matter at all.
Yeah. Wow, it feels mean to be mean to him when he's not here to defend himself.
He won.
Devin, I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link to this video so you can defend yourself after.
Yeah, he did great.
He did. What's your game?
Do you want me to go?
Yeah. We can go back. I have a bunch to talk about.
So mine, I think that I kind of have had, when I thought about this question, it was hard for me. And there aren't many games that I disliked that I've given enough of a chance to then like. And so for me, it's more the opposite, where there were games that I was really enchanted by, that I really loved, that I've fallen less in love with. And one of those is so sad is Talisman. Talisman is one that I loved for so long, and I do still love it. But I don't know if it's a game I would ask to play. And I think it's a 2-part thing. I think part of it is that it's victim of how old it is, that for so long it was one of the games that was really D&D-ish flavored, adventure, low-key, kind of fun. And I loved it, but now there are so many other options that I think are stronger, better options, that I want more plays with those games, that it has definitely... I've fallen less in love with it, which hurts. It hurts for me to change and be like, I don't know if this is in my top anymore. But yeah, you and I played it, Alex, and you are exceptional at pointing out flaws. And right away you were like, but why is this like this? And why is this like that? And then I was like, I can't unsee it now. I can't let that go now.
Yeah.
You're very analytical about games, which I appreciate. I think that you've changed how I think about certain games and how I do analyze them, and I think that honestly, if there's a game that you love for nostalgia, but
Don't
there's a
play it
game
with
that you could
Alex.
have a better time with, yeah, keep it away from Alex and
Arkham Horror, we
protect
should
it.
probably take off our get to the table list, Meg.
But if you have games that you're nostalgic about, and then there are exciting games that you could be having a better play experience with, don't let the want of nostalgia keep you from having a better play experience with something new. If you have access to new games, if I have a collection of How Big and I just keep playing the same thing, I think that's also not doing service to the new games that are coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. My next pick
Talisman.
is one that I changed my mind for the War Song, because usually more often I think of the ones that I got, because as I'm thinking of the question, I look at my collection, I see what I have, and like that was one that I changed my mind on. But one that I got rid of and changed my mind on, like when I think back to the very first time I had a mental top 10 list, there were a bunch of games in that mental top 10 list that there's some of them I still own, but some of them aren't there anymore. Five Tribes was one of the games that was in my mental top 10. The first time I put together a top 10 list, Five Tribes was in it. Kingdom Builder was in it. Kingdom Builder and Five Tribes are both great games, no longer in my top 10. But one game that is not only not in my top 10 anymore, but is out of my collection, is Cosmic Encounter. Cosmic Encounter, which is an old school Fantasy Flight game, or technically is actually, if you're going really old school, it's before Fantasy Flight, but Fantasy Flight had a few versions of it, and it's a great game of negotiation and space dominance as you try to make alliances with other people and betray them and agree to them and have different, unique races that will give you special abilities. And I loved the stories that Cosmic Encounter told. Whenever you played it, it was always so much fun. The different races you had, the different abilities they had, and everything that went on in the gameplay as you try to get the first person to get to 5 colonies was just always such a fun experience that I got rid of. And then I got back, and I got rid of it again, because it does give you some of those amazing experiences, and I loved it for a long time. But for me, I kind of found that my biggest problem with Cosmic Encounter was that, first of all, I find it really only operates at 5 players for me. It is not a 4-player game, it's not a 6-player game, it is a 5-player game to me. 6 players, I find your turns are too slow and your involvement's too slow, and 4 doesn't have the degree of teaming up that you'd want. It's like good at 4, best at 5, tolerable at any other player count, at least myself, although I'm sure you'll find a diverse set of opinions. But then the second aspect is, I find it really requires the right group, the right temperament, and it's not a game about winning, it's a game about the experience. You're going to get screwed over, you're going to screw others over. There'll be times where you have a great game, there'll be times where you have a game where you don't feel you did that much. And because of the inconsistent plays, and because of the specific player count, it's a game that I really do enjoy, and it's the kind of thing, like, we say this a lot as content creators, we say this a lot, like, I'd always be willing to play it. I would always be willing to play it. Like, if we had a convention or whatnot, I happily would play it. But at the end of the day, it's one that I don't feel... I stopped feeling the need to own it, and started feeling more like pulling it out was usually a bad choice when I could be pulling out a different 5-player game instead. Mm-hmm. And so that's one point in my top 10, and now it's a good game, and that's it for me.
Yeah. The thing is, there's so many great ones that just keep coming and surprising you. And, like, I feel like when games do new things, it's like, oh, you kind of knock someone down now.
And Dan saying his fun fact, apparently Cosmic Encounters was created in Massachusetts and Cape Cod. Did not know that. Yeah, very cool.
That is nice.
What's your next
I think
one?
Dan is Dan.
I think it is too, but I wasn't sure.
I think so.
I
so many people that I'm like, is it you?
Yeah.
So my next game is one that I had never tried it, but I changed my mind on even enjoying it, and this is one that I am actually super surprised. And it's one, Alex, that you got me to play, that it was a point of contention that I did not even want to play. And you were like, you kept asking for it and wanting to play, and I was like, I really just don't think I can. And it's Letters from Whitechapel. And we've talked about this game a little bit, I think, even here on this channel, so I won't, like, get super into it, but Letters from Whitechapel is about Jack the Ripper. It's Jack the Ripper, he is attacking women, he is killing women, and you are playing as the police trying to catch him. And I had such a hard time wrapping my head around either I'm killing women or I'm too slow and not able to save these women from being killed. And where it's a real life situation as well, it's something that has actually happened and is very, like, traumatic and gruesome and horrible. I had such a hard time feeling okay playing that game, and I am very sensitive. There are a lot of games that I don't play because of the topic or because of what they're about. So that was one that I did not want anything to do with, and I knew it was a fun experience. Devin absolutely loves that game. I've always heard great things about it, but because of the theme, I just could not get past it. So we finally played when you visited. We decided to change a little bit of the theme and not call it what it was. So it was like a little bit softer for me to be able to play. And oh my gosh, I loved it. Like I love the gameplay. I love the hidden movement. I want to say it's one of the, I think I may enjoy it more than Mind Management. I know, no, I'm gonna get like, maybe not. I haven't played Mind Management enough.
I love Letters from Whitechapel. I do, but I am not okay with that sentence. I'm okay. You're allowed to have your own opinion. I'm being dramatic, just for those. Just everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. I'm expressing my love for Mind Management. I'm expressing my love for Mind Management by minimizing the validity of your own opinion, but obviously it doesn't matter.
And I think maybe it is that I was so charmed by like this experience and how he changed the story and things like that. And I think it's very clever, and I like that it's a bigger board. I like the deduction. I feel like maybe it is just how I understood it better, but I think I'm better at the deduction aspect of Letters from Whitechapel more than Mind Management. So maybe it's just that I understand it better and not like it better, but I can play it better. But I really, really fell in love with it, and I'm still not okay with the theme. We still don't call it what it is. But that being said, it is a really engaging game that I think is really fun.
And the theme it's actually interesting. Like, there's something that has been more and more, I guess, partially because I've been hanging out with you to a degree. I'm more sensitive to the real life aspects of games in ways that would, sensitive is, I don't mind the real life consequences of real things, but like even just recently, I was unboxing V Sabotage, which will go on my channel sometime soon. I don't know. And every time I pulled up, I was like, oh, and here's like a pillbox where you'd mow down like the baddies, and I'm like, oh, that actually feels kind of violent. I'm like, here's the tank that would be awesome. That feels kind of violent. Like a lot of things. Yeah. There are a lot of areas in which games actually have really tricky subjects that we kind of just embrace, and I like the part of me that doesn't think about them, but also there's a part of me that now thinks about them a little more. I think Letters from Whitechapel, though, is probably on the forward end of that, as far as if you're really looking for things that just really ask you to lean heavily into like the theme. The Letters from Whitechapel is straight up a theme where like one player is actively trying to murder the women, and the other player is trying to stop him from murdering the women. That is exactly it. Is like, it's not taking a step back. It's not some war thing where you're like a tactical commander. No, the theme is pretty intense, and it asks you as the player to buy into being okay with that. And I am, but I am with the caveat that I acknowledge all the levels of icky that are involved in that.
Yeah, and I think too it depends how much of like the historical knowledge you have, where you and I talked about this before we played, but you generally knew that women were being killed. This is something that I've looked into or heard a lot about, like in the true crime worlds, that like the things that happened to the women was way more than just being killed. So to know exactly how gruesome the things that were happening, like it's a really heavy subject. And
the rulebook leans into that. They have little sections on the side that talk about the real history. Like, they talk about it. Like, it's not like they are unaware. They're like, hey, by the way, dear gamer who's about to engage in this being Jack the Ripper, just in case you were wondering, here are some of the things, Jack the Ripper, that you did in real life. And like, it's intense. Like, I understand there are areas where I'm like, hey, you're being a little too sensitive. Not necessarily you, but like the general concept. Like, hey, you can be sensitive if you want.
I'm always too sensitive. It's okay.
The idea that sometimes I think everyone's entitled to their own level of tolerance, but sometimes I do think that, like, there's a point where you have to. There's a point where if you're too cognizant of everything, you will never play any game. And almost any game you pick can have some degree of something attached to it in some way, if nothing else, except for the, like, you know, let's not even get into the young children in China manufacturing the game you're playing. Potentially, I don't even know. I'm not saying, but I'm saying, like, there's always degrees of something that could be a factor. And I'm not saying to be mindful or not be mindful, but I think like Letters from Whitechapel really, really is like pushing the limits. Anyways, that is yours next one. So my next one is going to be the next one that Harv's K mentioned, which is Everdell. He mentioned Everdell in his list. And Everdell is one that I actually played. I played it, I think, I want to say twice if I'm not mistaken, and then I got rid of it. I was like, this is good. I don't see what the hype and buzz... No, I played it once. I played it once, and I got rid of it. I did not see what the hype and buzz was about it. I was like, it's a good game. It wasn't great. And then I had second thoughts about it. And this doesn't happen to me a lot, but after I got rid of it, like 2 months later, I was like, I want to play it again. And I got it back. And I loved it. And a big part that I say about it, because I think, like, speaking to my analytical side of things, like, I always try to look into why I like a game, or even why I change my mind in a game. So, like, in the case of A Feast for Odin, I completely understand why. I played as somebody who was less into it, and so it was only a good game. I didn't need a heavy good game. I only want heavy great games. In the case of Cosmic Encounter, it was a game that really delivered amazing experiences, but the more I played it, the more I saw some of the flaws in the actual gameplay and the experiences above all else. But in the case of Everdell was one where one of the things that happens in Everdell is everything feels incredibly tight as you play it. So when you have a tableau of up to 15 cards you're slowly placing down, and there's ways to get more cards in play. You can place people into their respective buildings. There's all these little tips and tricks you can do. But like, you start playing that game and across 4 seasons, and you just feel like, I am never going to actually fill this card row. And by the time you get to the end of it, you're like, actually, I have room for more cards, and I played a little suboptimally because you're trying to maximize the point spread on the cards you get. And so I think my first play really kind of shifted me in different directions as far as what I expected to happen versus what I was actually able to get done. And that led me feeling a bit disjointed on just how much I enjoyed the experience. Versus subsequent plays, I really have learned to love that game. Like, Everdell is one, like Stacey saying, wow, from meh to love in Everdell. Yes, Everdell is one that was very much a game that was good but not great, and then I got it back, and it's currently one of my favorite games.
That's really interesting because I wasn't sure what you were going to say or how you were going to go with that, but for me, I think I've fallen less in love with it. It was one that I overplayed a lot. I played it so much when we first got it. I really loved it. I have 2 of the expansions, and I would still love to play it, but I don't love it as much. It's not like a top where, like, I still really enjoy it, still think it's great, nothing against it, but there are other games I would prefer to play first. And my biggest issue with it is how static I feel the market board gets. So
that is a big deal, though. Yes, you're not wrong.
I feel like that just gets so stuck, and I wish that it wiped between seasons or something like that, that it was easier to refresh that. And there are different things that you can do to home rules it. And I think maybe a future expansion does do that or change it. Hey, Devin Talks Tabletop is
Devin Talks Tabletop.
Hi, buddy.
Wow, just when I thought Devin cared, he's like, Joey reminded me.
Yeah, anyone, Stacey, if you know right now for Everdell, if there is an expansion that changes the market board, that was my biggest issue with it, was I felt like it got to the point where I mastered it, I guess. Like, I was doing enough where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have a different experience next time I play. And honestly, like, Alex, you and I should be playing Everdell together, because I think that you would probably, like, rock me in it, and then I'd be like, okay, let's try again.
Well, also, Everdell's a game where I actually haven't played with most of the expansions. I've played with the base game, and then I played the prototype new expansions. I haven't played with the classic, Pearlbrook or any of those.
Firecrest is fun, because it adds more animals.
Actually,
and you get to ride them.
Speaking of rulebooks I read when flying, I read the rulebook for Firecrest, I want to say.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyways,
yeah, so I definitely still enjoy it, but it's not one that I'm like, I need it again. I need it again.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. But it's we should play it at some point. I need to play it with more expansions, and I do agree with you on the market board very much. Stacey saying just house rule to clear the market. I think it should be. My biggest complaint playing Everdell nowadays is if the market gets stagnant, the market gets stagnant. If you don't have cards in play that reward you by getting extra things out of the market, it can get locked up.
Well, and for how many cards are available, like, I think maybe as well, it probably is victim to player count. How many do you usually play it at, Alex?
I've played Everdell at 2 and 3 players.
Okay. Because I only usually play it at 2, and I feel like that also just really limits what comes out.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like a 4-player game probably does have a lot more variety, where that's maybe not as much of an issue.
But also a lot more downtime, which I'm not looking at. Even playing it at 2 or 3, I think 2 and 3 are my preferred player counts for Everdell. More than that, I wouldn't want to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I'll go with one more. Let's do one more each, so this doesn't go too long, because we're already crossing the hour mark.
I don't know if I have one more, Alex, so that I could think of.
I will have one more, and we'll wrap up with that. I will pick, and I have a whole list of these. I'll go with one that I've changed my mind on a few times, and that's Through the Ages. Through the Ages is one of the best games, period. I just think it's one of the best games out there. It's from Shoutout. It's a civ building game in which you're trying to build out your civ by drafting cards from the marketplace and using a action selection mechanism that really has you trying to figure out where you want to spend your actions as you build up your own civilization. It has an app. I highly recommend the app. Much easier to play it with the app. But Through the Ages is one of my favorite games. The only problem is even at 3 players, it can be a 6-hour long experience. It could go quicker. If you have 3 players who know what they're doing, it could be 4 hours. But like, it could also be 6 if you're not careful with it. And in general, I just find Through the Ages is an incredible experience that you can play it on the app in half an hour, or you can play it with like 2 or 3 people in anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. And that made it one that eventually, as much as I loved it, I did eventually get rid of it. For like 2 years. And then was like, no, this is too good a game. I have to get it back. I don't care. I don't care what the reasons or the excuses, all that. It's a game that's just so good. Through the Ages is just so good in what it's doing that I had to eventually get it back, and I did get it back, and since then I've tabled it again and again. It's not one that gets tabled a lot. Since getting it back, I may have played it 3 times, maybe 4, and that was like 2 years ago. So maybe it's easy to play once or twice a year, But at this point, I've played it enough times that I don't have to reread the rulebook every single time. I mostly know what's going on, possibly with rules mistakes, but I don't mind rules mistakes on games as long as the experience is preserved, and the experience is definitely preserved, even if the rules mistakes do favor me. We're not going to talk about that. But in general, I think Through the Ages is a fantastic game. It's a fantastic game that I think is very long, and I think it's a game that doesn't get tabled a lot. But when it does get tabled, it is worth owning for those few times that you're tabling it, at least in my opinion.
Let's play.
We should play it. I'll play Through the Ages anytime. That's another one.
I'm going to add it to our list.
We should, with Devin.
We have a very long list, but I'm going to add it.
I've never actually reviewed the Through the Ages base game. I've reviewed the expansion. I have not reviewed the base game, and so I'm happy to play it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add it to the Alex When I'm at Your House list, which is getting increasingly longer.
Yeah, the list keeps getting longer. The problem is we keep playing campaign games. We're playing through Oathsworn and Gloomhaven and Hoplomachus and Roleplay Adventures. So, like, eventually, yeah.
Before we go,
yes.
I will say, Alex, I believe George asked this way earlier in chat. He said, how are you enjoying your new Ember mug? I just took another sip of coffee. I think it's hotter now than when I poured it. So it is definitely working.
So that's one of the things about the Ember mug I've actually noticed, where sometimes because of the nature of having of the coffee heating to a certain temperature, sometimes when I'm done pouring the coffee, it's a little bit low. The temperature is actually set to, and then it gets hotter as you play it. But yeah.
Yeah, as you play it.
As you play it.
You just said it gets hotter as you play it.
We're talking about board games. I'm allowed to focus on board games. But anyways.
Yes, I'm playing my fueling resource game right now.
So that is our weekly live. We'll be back next week. For those of you who tune in, as usual, thank you for tuning in. All that stuff. We'll have Q&As back at some point. I will still have separate Q&As, but those are going to be probably like a once a month type of thing. We'll figure it out. Next week is going to be just me and Devin. It's going to be just me and Devin next week, and then the week after that, do we still have the weekly live? I think so.
It will be yeah.
I think so.
Why not?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I don't know. But then past that, the last thing I'll say is I believe, we talked about this, but we haven't announced it officially. I believe we're moving this to later in the day. Is that the plan?
Yes. I don't know when. We got to have like a little company chit chat. But someone made a great point that this starts at 7 a.m. for people in California, which is a little early.
Yep. And so we might be pushing it to 1 o'clock, I think, is the tentative plan, but we'll have to figure it out.
1 o'clock EST.
1 o'clock EST, which would potentially be 10 o'clock PST, and give opportunities for people to jump in at various different time zones. That's not official, but next week, if it happens to be 1 o'clock EST, then you'll know. It'll be scheduled. We are starting to schedule, thanks to Meg. She figured out the scheduling system in Streamlabs, so it will be scheduled, and we'll figure that out. But the weekly live might be moving to more midday every week as opposed to early day. And then, of course, that means we'll have to have a 10 a.m. video, same as usual.
Yeah. And a friendly reminder, if you want to help choose the topics, our main topics of the show that we talk about, please join the Board Game Co. Patreon. It is a very fun time, and you can help influence our live shows.
Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Appreciate you all being here and hanging around. Oh, no.
I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving.
What's wrong with 1 p.m., Stacey?
Maybe she's busy.
It could be. In any case, yeah, I'll echo what you said, Meg. I hope everyone does have a happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. Buy fun stuff. Don't spend more than you should, and be responsible and all those fun things. And also spend time with family, which is really the main point of it.
Have all the mashed potatoes, which is the most important part, is the potatoes at Thanksgiving. Everyone have extra mashed potatoes for Meg.
I'm much more of a stuffing and turkey kind of person.
Yeah, but the mashed potatoes are the most important.
Yeah. In any case, we'll go ahead and call it for now.